Good evening. Before we begin, a few important reminders. Even though a GI provider and a dietitian are joining us today, the Parent and Family Advisory Council does not provide medical advice. We share lived experience only. Nothing shared today replaces medical advice, treatment recommendations, or a clinic visit. For questions about your specific care or nutritional needs, please talk with your healthcare team. Today's information is meant to be supportive, not personalized medical care. We also want to keep this a safe and respectful space. Everyone's journey is different, so please be supportive and non-judgmental of one another. You're welcome to share your experiences, but we ask that you avoid political or religious discussions. And because this session is being recorded, please share only what you're comfortable with. Now, just a few quick notes before we jump in. If you're cooking at home, please preheat your oven now to 400 degrees for the roasted squash home fries that we'll be making together. And one quick heads up, before we wrap up this evening, we'll take a brief group photo. If you're comfortable, we'd love to have you share your finished dish, ready to share. Now let's go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Lester, Connections co-lead of the Improved Care Now Parent and Family Advisory Council, and we're so glad that you're here with us this evening. On behalf of the Improved Care Now PFAC and the GI Nutrition Foundation, welcome. We are excited to offer this cooking demonstration focused on empowering you in the kitchen and exploring how nutrition can support those living with inflammatory bowel disease. For those of you who may be less familiar, the PFAC is a community of caregivers dedicated to supporting and connecting families living with inflammatory bowel disease. We contribute nationally by sharing experiences, developing resources, and partnering on programs like this to better support families across the IBD community. Finally, a few quick housekeeping notes. Feel free to cook along or simply watch. You're welcome to unmute yourself during the demo to ask questions, or you can share them in the chat. Please stay muted when not speaking, and when we cue the group photo, you're welcome to turn on your camera if you'd like. With that, I'll turn it over to Christy McCollum.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm Christy, and I'm part of the team at the GI Nutrition Foundation. I wanted to take just a moment to share a little about our organization and why this work is so meaningful to us. GI Nutrition Foundation is a nonprofit organization focused on advancing evidence-based nutrition as an essential part of GI care. Our organization was founded by Kim and Anthony Bell after their son was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at age 13. Through their own experience, they saw how powerful evidence-based nutrition therapy could be when used alongside medical treatment, but also how difficult it was for families and clinicians to find clear, credible guidance. They recognized this gap in education and care and set out to help provide a solution. Our mission is deeply personal to everyone on the team. We all have lived experience with GI conditions, whether as patients, caregivers, or healthcare professionals. And for me, as a caregiver myself, I know how valuable it would have been 12 years ago to have trusted nutrition guidance that was practical, supportive, and realistic for everyday family life. That's really at the heart of the GI Nutrition Foundation, translating GI nutrition research into tools and resources that patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals can actually use, helping families feel more confident using nutrition alongside medical care. We're so grateful to partner with Improved Care Now and the Patient and Family Advisory Council for this program, and we hope tonight feels encouraging, helpful, and fun as you think about what nutrition can look like for your own family. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Leah Maggs, who will introduce herself, our speakers, and get us started.
Hi, my name is Leah Maggs, and I'm a member of the Improved Care Now Parent and Family Advisory Council. I'm also the parent of 2 children living with Crohn's disease. Our family has been using the specific carbohydrate diet for about 10 years as a foundation of my children's treatment plan. Tonight is really about making nutrition feel more approachable, practical, and hopeful for families navigating IBD. We're going to spend this time together in a conversational way while also cooking a gut-friendly meal in real time. Please feel free to cook alongside Chef Ryan and use the chat throughout the event. I'll be keeping an eye on questions and comments as we go. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. First, Dr. David Suskind of Seattle Children's Hospital. Dr. Suskind has been a leader in pediatric IBD and nutrition research, particularly in dietary therapy and the role of the microbiome in IBD. We're so grateful to have his expertise and perspective with us tonight. We're also joined by Kim Brawley, a registered dietitian who works closely with families navigating nutrition and IBD. I know many parents are looking for realistic, sustainable ways to approach food, so we're excited to learn from her experience this evening. And finally, we're joined by Chef Ryan Van Voorhis of Nude Dude Food, who will be guiding us through tonight's cooking demonstration. Chef Ryan also lives with IBD, bringing an incredibly valuable real-world perspective to this conversation. To get us started, I'd love to begin with a discussion on why diet matters in IBD. There's so much information online, and it can really feel overwhelming for families trying to make the best choices. Let's hear from Dr. Suskind on this important topic.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here and such a pleasure to see the enthusiasm and the passion in terms of integrating dietary intervention in IBD care. There is no doubt that diet plays a central role in the care of patients with IBD, but also everybody, whether you have IBD or not. Diet is central to our well-being. In inflammatory bowel disease, it affects the microbiome, that component of our body that our immune system is attacking in IBD. And so by adjusting your diet, you actually shift or change the microbiome, which then leads to decreased inflammation in the bowels. And everybody's dietary journey will be different, and what diet is right for each individual will be different. And I think that is something that we can also talk about this evening as well.
And for me, it's also a privilege. I'm Kim Brawley, dietitian, to be here with you all tonight, seeing some new faces and familiar faces. So welcome. And as a dietitian, from my standpoint, I work to reframe how we think about nutrition for those with inflammatory bowel disease. And it's not about one rigid diet or endless restrictions. Instead, we want to focus on building a sustainable and personalized way of eating that supports healing, that supports growth for our pediatric patients, and that supports one's healthy and healing relationship with food. And this can be using a defined nutrition therapy, hopefully some of which we'll talk about today, or, more of a whole foods approach. But either way, the priorities are to find safe foods for times when you or your young one feels unwell, to listen to your body or to support and begin to talk with your kiddo about listening to their body as able. Sometimes in a sick body, that's a little more difficult. We want to focus on what foods to add, not what foods are we really taking away, prioritizing whole foods that you can enjoy. And then last but not least, we want to find easy, nourishing foods to eat. Having a list of quick go-to foods can be really helpful, especially if you're in the thick of sickness, and it can take out just that decision fatigue. And as many of you know, one of the most common questions that patients ask after diagnosis of IBD is, what foods can I eat? We come to our GI doc and say, what do I eat, doctor? The reality is that there isn't a single way of eating for everyone with IBD. Different nutrition approaches may be helpful depending on a person's condition, their goals of care that they establish with their provider and their family, and the circumstances that they find themselves in. So, to help guide these conversations, we developed the IBD Nutrition Navigator that we want to share with you. And the development of this tool was led by Dr. Anantha Krishnan from Harvard in collaboration with our team of clinicians and nutrition experts from the GI Nutrition Foundation. This navigator helps patients and healthcare providers to explore different strategies that may work alongside medical treatment. It encourages shared decision making by considering factors such as the type and stage of the disease that the patient's diagnosed with, personal goals that the family has. It gauges one's interest in dietary changes and their ability to do so depending on the resources that they have available to support them. But ultimately, the goal with the navigator is to make conversations about nutrition clearer, more personalized, and easier to navigate. So with that, let's jump into our cooking. I hope your ovens are ready.
Yeah, thank you for that great intro, everyone. My name is Ryan. Like was previously stated, I also am an IBD patient myself. I've had Crohn's disease since I was an adolescent and had a couple surgeries and have a permanent ostomy now for over 20 years. But thanks to just a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle and some tips that we'll talk about today, I've been able to really thrive with this disease. And like Kim said, approaching food in a way that isn't restrictive, but finding tricks and tips and foods that you like that are really friendly for your gut. And again, take these recipes and take kind of everything that we say today and put it to your own diagnosis and your own experience. Not everyone experiences the same symptoms. They don't, have the same medication. So same kind of philosophy for food. If there's certain things you don't like or don't agree with you, the good thing about cooking is there's always modifications. So as we go through the demos today, if you hear something that you can't have, or there's something that you can use as an alternative for yourself, that is a great idea. Today, we're focusing on this roasted squash that we're going to do, and then we're going to do a chicken piccata. So everyone loves squash. It's great for your GI system. For me specifically, helps with digestion, kind of firming up my stools, if you will. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you kind of the easiest way to break this down. You get these at the market. I'm in Chicago, so there's a farmer's market here now. Spring is here, summer is around the corner, and there's a lot of great vegetables that are really fresh, really locally sourced. And that's something as a chef that I focus on, is not only supporting my local economy, but also the local farms, because getting something from a grocery store is great, but if you can get something from your local farm and then track that back to, oh, this was, produced 10 miles from me in Chicago, it's really kind of supporting that ecosystem. And me as a chef, when I'm preparing these foods and doing a dinner party, whatever it may be, I can kind of tell that story through the food that I, picked this, or farmer that I know picked out some of these vegetables versus maybe getting something at a grocery store that's traveled across the country. So again, breaking this down can be a little intimidating. I'm going to show you a quick and easy way, something that I like to do. So first off is cutting the top off. You're going to cut the top and the bottom, basically kind of square this off so now it sits upright. If you're trying to do something round, it rolls all over your cutting surface. But again, to practice good, knife skills, you want to make sure everything is stable on your surface. So now that I've halved the top and the bottom, then I like to take it vertically and just go down right through the center. So now I have two halves. And like a lot of vegetables, there's some seeds in the middle. And a good vehicle really is just a spoon. So you take a nice spoon and just kind of carve that out. You can save these seeds if you want. You can compost them. So then it should like this. We're going to do it to the other half as well. And then once those are cleaned out, again, working with a flat surface, we're going to peel the outside. So some vegetables, honey nut squash, delicata squash, you can eat the skin. They're actually very high in nutrients. But for a lot of IBD patients and myself, skins, apples, and skins of things are really hard to digest. So we want to make sure we're peeling these. And my favorite tool is it's a Y peeler. So you might have a vegetable peeler in your house, but this simple gadget is probably about $5 or $6 on Amazon. You'll see them in most kitchens, but this is really handy. So with your squash halves now on the cutting surface, I'm going to leave it down versus picking up. You could do it this way, right? But really to give the most stability, you just want to keep it on your cutting board and peel like you would. You can peel this into a bowl, into the trash, and you can see I'm doing a couple layers till I get down to that flesh side. One layer still is kind of leaving that white. You can see the white flesh. You really want to get down a little deeper until you see that orange color that's the same side as the middle. So go all the way through that. I'm going to kind of speed up here. It takes a little while. But then once that's done, then you're going to see on the inside, that's where you cord it out. There's a little thicker part up here. So once you get all this done, then we'll cube it up, or you can do it as French fries. And if you're cooking at home, again, hopefully you have your oven preheated, because again, these will cook evenly if you cook and cut them kind of in similar shapes. So we'll maybe do like a cube today, but if you want to do like a French fry shape or something, the idea would be to try to keep them to the same size and shape, and then they'll cook more evenly. So that's my half. Going to get rid of these scraps, and then we'll start breaking this down. So I like to do it lengthwise here, and we'll do, again, this is choose your own adventure, do what you need. I'm going to do about a ½ inch and go all the way down through. And then again, you'll see at the bottom where you scooped out, it's a little more hollow. So you just kind of plan accordingly, and they'll look like this. So there's like a half moon. And again, I'm just going to go back through and put like a medium dice, put a cube on there, almost like the size of a plain dice. So get those in our bowl. We're going to continue. We'll cut all of this up. Again, if you're using bigger shapes, different shapes, that's great. Get the kids involved at home. That's one thing that I really like to do with my cooking, is not only kind of educate people, but also empower them that, look, cooking can be intimidating. Eating with IBD can be scary, not knowing what's going to make you feel good, but no better way to figure out what you like and don't like than by preparing it yourself. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. This is how I eat most days also. Not overcomplicating things, just using good locally sourced fruits and vegetables. And the big thing when eating fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, for me specifically, is cooking them not only makes it easier to digest, but then also taste better. So by softening these vegetables or fruits, it's going to be easier to digest. So if you're doing like a puree, or if you're just roasting them, you're breaking down those harsh starches, and they'll cook a little better and be easier to digest. So you can see I have a big bowl of just the cubes here now. Now, again, you can use any spices you like. We want to use some good olive oil. But again, if you have something else that you like, avocado oil, anything that is gut friendly for you, that's what you would use here. So give those a little toss. I have fresh kosher salt. We'll give that a good little sprinkle. Some fresh black pepper. Little toss. We love using bowls like this, or you can put it right on a sheet pan. It's a great way to get kind of everything seasoned. Let's see, I have a little paprika here. And again, We're going to cook with some garlic today, but if you are someone who can't handle alliums and things like that, you can always use like an infused oil or a garlic oil. So again, kind of take these ideas and recipes that we're using today and apply them to your own experience. So these are going to go into an air fryer. It's kind of nice in Chicago today, so I don't want to turn on the whole oven. These air fryers and convection ovens are kind of all the craze now, but really all it is a tabletop oven with a fan in it, like a convection oven, and it won't heat your whole house. It'll just kind of heat up and cook a little quicker. So there you go, even out layer. So again, one single layer. If you're in a sheet pan, or if you're doing something, you don't want them too crowded in your pan, so they cook evenly all the way around. So those are going to go in the oven. Again, if you're cooking at home, it's important to preheat your oven because that factors into the cook time. Again, depending on how big you left these pieces will determine how long they cook. So if you were roasting that whole or this other half I hear, if you're roasting this whole, this would take 30 to 40 minutes potentially. But now by cubing them, it's going to speed up the cooking process and should be done by the time we're done with this demo. So that is that. How are we doing so far?
We're doing great. I was going to ask, is squash, either you or Kim, is squash a good food for kids that like when they're in a flare? Is there a specific way that you would recommend cooking it?
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer that. Great question. Squash is one of those foods that, if we're talking about evidence-based nutrition therapies, it's on pretty much every option. It is a nice, safe, delicious food, like Chef Ryan mentioned, that most tend to tolerate well. So for kids in a flare, it really depends on the symptoms. You know, some kids will have a lot of diarrhea, frequent bowel movements, and in that case, you know, pureeing it, cooking it well first, steaming, blending, but still giving it flavor so it tastes good can be simple, may be better tolerated. For those that don't tend to have the diarrhea, maybe if they have more constipating symptoms, for example, it can be fine eating it just like Chef Ryan is talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's roasting is a great way to impact some flavor, but also you get some texture too. I love purees and cooking. It's a great base for a lot of my dishes. And again, you can kind of sneak in some more vegetables where you wouldn't, you know, so even like a celery root over a potato, things like that. Purees are really great ways to not only get in some vegetables, but they add a lot of texture and flavor. So yeah, I think I saw a question. Temp right now, I'm at like 400 degrees, probably 10 to 15 minutes. Again, if you're using bigger pieces, they may take longer. Oven times and temps vary, so kind of use your judgment on that. I'm getting ready next to get into this chicken. So a big thing when cooking and thinking about recipes is wanting to get all of your ingredients prepared ahead of time. So we call that like mise en place. So I have a bunch of delis in front of me of all the ingredients that are on our recipe. And so before I start cooking, I'll make sure I have everything ready in front of me, not only for a demo like this, but just so you're a little more organized and there's less anxiety if you're cooking and you're new to cooking. But having all your ingredients prepared and ready is one of the most important things when you start to cook. So right now I'm getting ready for this chicken. The chicken is out. I'm just mincing up. I'm using a microplane, which is a great tool in the kitchen. You might have seen it like it's a zester. You can do it for shaving Parmesan cheese, but really it's just giving me a really, really fine grate on this garlic that we're going to use in the chicken piccata. So that, speaking of chicken, I have it out. I have 3 breasts. I'm going to make some of this as leftovers for tomorrow, so that's why I have a couple more. You can use chicken thighs. You can use kind of any type of meat that you like. Chicken thighs tend to have a little higher fat content, but they also have a lot more flavor. Breasts are also great. They're full of protein and kind of a fan favorite. So mine are pretty thin. Tips with this, if you are using some really big chicken breasts, it's best to either kind of butterfly them, or you can use a tool to try to flatten them out a little bit. The idea would be to get them to be about the same thickness. Again, thinking about as our squash cooks, having things be the same size or same thickness is going to cook more evenly in a pan. If you had a big breast with like a really big side and then a thin end, that thin end is going to cook a lot quicker. So these are all pretty even. I'm going to put a little salt and pepper on all of these. I'm also going to preheat my pan. So with this, we want like a medium heat. We're not doing something super high heat. If we were doing something really high heat, I wouldn't recommend using olive oil. I'd use something higher, like a higher flash point. So I have some avocado oil. I also have olive oil, which is really good and higher, more flavor, right? You see a lot of really good olive oils. I'm going to use a little mixture today. So as I'm getting this chicken ready, I'm just going to warm up this pan over about a medium heat. So about a 4 to a 5. Again, ovens and stovetops vary. I have a nice heavy bottom stainless steel pan that I'm using. We really like cast iron pans. Things that are a little thicker and heavier are going to disperse that heat over your pan a little more evenly. So I'm going with stainless steel tonight. If you have a non-stick, that's fine too. I have some hex clad that I use also, but really use whatever you're comfortable with. Again, we're going over medium heat and really just going to try to brown these up. So I got one side. I'm going to flip these with my clean hand. I'm going to salt a little more on the other side. I'm going to wash the hands. Always washing hands. All right, so those are seasoned. I'm going to add a little coconut flour. Again, that's what the recipe calls for. If you can tolerate flour, if you have different substitutions that you use at home, this is where you can kind of go your own route. But this is what I have for today. So again, this is just a quick little light dressing on a put. It's not going to be like a heavy breading by any means. We're just trying to get this onto these chicken breasts, and that will help with the browning when we hit the pan.
And this recipe calls for, coconut flour, but as Chef Ryan mentioned, you can use alternatives. So for example, for one that might be on the Crohn's disease exclusion diet, you could use rice flour. You could replace the capers with something like a little wine or a squeeze of lemon, some fresh herbs, which add significant flavor. You could also add a little extra broth or stock. And then the canned coconut could be thickened with some broth and a little more of that, kind of the dredges of the flour that you're using, whether it's rice flour, potato flour, and the olive oil.
Yeah,
While
that's
you're
right. So
getting
again,
that,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, while you're getting that prepared on the stove, just wondering if Dr. Suskind could address how he answers when families come into his office and ask whether diet in IBD really matters.
Well, I would say absolutely. There's no doubt that diet matters. And I think, to the point I think everybody's been making, everybody's journey is a little bit different. And it really depends on what the major issues are going on for any one individual at one point. And what also an individual can do. Everybody comes to the situation from a little bit of a different perspective. And I think that as practitioners, we have to accept that and know that that whatever they do, as long as they're trying to eat a relatively healthy diet, that will have a positive impact. Some of the interventions are there to actually treat the IBD itself. So the Crohn's disease exclusion diet, the SCD, and there are a number of other dietary interventions that are being studied as we speak. And some of the dietary interventions are there to help support individuals who are on medication therapy. There have been some really, really interesting studies where individuals who are on, let's say, biologic medications are either eating a regular diet or a Mediterranean like diet or a whole foods diet. And actually, the inflammatory burden, the calprotectins were significantly lower when you eat healthy foods. So everybody's dietary intervention may be a little bit different, but diet's going to be extremely important for all of us.
Definitely. Even myself, I find I feel better even though I cook every day. When I know what's going into the food and what makes me feel better personally, I definitely have better, less GI symptoms and feel healthier overall. So yeah. So the chicken's on. It'll probably sear again, depending on how high your oil is, a couple minutes per side. Also, depending on how thick they are. These will probably take 3 or 4 minutes per side. So a good thing, so while they're cooking, I've diced up some of my onion. So that's going to be used to help build the sauce. I have some capers here that I also will use. Again, if they are not on your diet, you can leave them out. They really give a little pop of flavor and salt. But there's definitely ways that you can substitute this and use different things. Same with the onion. If it doesn't agree with you, simply leave it out. The garlic as well. There's some hacks to use, like a garlic oil. If you take some oil that you like and put it over a low heat with some garlic cloves, you can infuse oil with different flavors that way, and then it makes it a little easier on your gut. So capers, onion. I'm going to finish with some butter, and then I have my garlic here as well. And then next to that is a lot of acid and lemon juice. It's going to kind of balance out the saltiness of the capers, but that's all going to be used kind of to finish this at the end. So,
Ryan, we have a question in the chat. Do you set the chicken out of the fridge 30 minutes or so before cooking?
I do. Again, I'm in Chicago. It's been pretty cold. Let me flip these really quick. Oh yeah. So for me, I don't want to cook something straight out of the fridge, or if it comes in, and then this is a question I think we got also about like meal prep and planning ahead, vegetable storage, even meat storage. Taking things out of the bag they came in, or if you get a pack of chicken breasts and they're in the cellophane wrapped containers, I try to get them out of there, pat them dry. And so that's what I did with the chicken. I got them out of my refrigerator, out of the package, took a paper towel and got some of that residual liquid off of them. Not only is that going to cook a little better when it hits the pan, it's not wet. You're going to have a hard surface between your protein and the pan. So your oil, obviously oil and water don't mix very well. So you want to get those really dry. But yes, 30 minutes, again, it kind of varies by climate and where you are. But typically I try to get things up closer to not necessarily room temp, but get them out of the oven or get them out of your fridge, out of the package before you cook them. Because then your oven time will be different. If you're putting something just cold right out of the refrigerator, it's not going to cook very evenly.
Kim, what are some realistic first steps for families who are feeling overwhelmed with a new diagnosis?
From a nutrition standpoint, usually I would like to start with, I find more often than not, food has been excluded, whether it's a food group or a single food. And so it's really an emphasis on what can we add back. And that really can help the child's growth, their relationship with food, and it kind of tackles multiple kind of struggles that we can frequently see with IBD. So that's oftentimes where we'll start. Even within a defined kind of nutrition therapy, I find there are certain foods maybe being excluded that don't need to be. Maybe we pivot and look for a different option altogether. That might be a better fit for the kid, just bringing in some of the evidence and the science behind why it could work for the family.
And I think the IBD Navigator, which you showed everybody early, is also if you don't have Kim in front of you, it's a wonderful resource as well to help with some guidance in terms of what what type of dietary intervention somebody may or may not want to do.
And the GI Foundation website goes into detail about each of those sections on the Navigator. The Navigator, is the visual, which is great because it really breaks it down into just the nuts and bolts of what we can dive into and discuss in much more detail. So we'll put the link to the website in the chat as well for anyone that wants to look into some of those options in more detail.
Yeah, I think, like you said, starting with things that you like or your teen or your loved one likes is a great starting point, and really thinking about things that you can have versus excluding things you can't. There's a lot of great things. There's a lot of fun ways to modify food, even just like we're talking about today. So I got the chicken off. It's nice and brown. You can use an internal thermometer as a great way when you're cooking to just make sure your food is safe to eat. I noticed there's some questions in the chat before about like having dry meat or dry chicken. And that's probably one way to ensure you're not overcooking it, is using a thermometer to make sure it comes up to temp, which would be 165 with some breast. So these are probably about 80–90% done. I'm going to use my pan here still to finish this sauce. So I got off, there's a little like brown spots. You want some of that in your pan. That's going to add a lot of flavor. Anything that's burned, any little like pieces, I got rid of some of that oil. It was getting a little too hot. We don't want that to burn our sauce. So we have a little oil still left in the pan. I'm going to add first our onion and capers. So they're about the same size. If I use our garlic, which is really finely grated right now, what would happen is it would burn really quickly. Again, going back to making sure that squash is cut evenly, it's going to ensure an even cook time. So we have about a small dice on this onion here. We're going to let that cook a little bit, kind of soak up any residual oil and flavor from this chicken that's going to infuse into those aromatics now. So cook those a little bit, let them soften, and then we'll add some more of our ingredients. We'll add our garlic, we'll add a little more of this lemon, we'll deglaze with some white wine. Again, if you want, you can leave it out. If you'd rather use something else, you can use many different things. You can use broths or stocks or bone broths, I know we talked about. All ways to not only infuse flavor, but get some more nutrients in the body as well.
Well, that's cooking, Dr. Suskind. What have we learned in recent years about the relationship between food, inflammation, and the microbiome?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go on to like a 2-hour diatribe right now. So I
know this is your
apologize to everybody
specialty.
right now. I think in essence, when we think about food and its impact on the body, it is rather remarkable. And we're not always aware of it because food is something that we see on a daily basis. And so we eat and we think, oh, that's that. But its actual impact on the body, at the microbiome, the epithelial cells, the lining of the GI tract, and actually the immune system itself is remarkable. The microbiome and diet are hand in hand. So the foods you eat are the same foods that bacteria within our GI tract eat. And there are literally trillions upon trillions of bacteria in our GI tract. So when we eat food, it shifts the microbiome, and it actually shifts it rather quickly. So you can actually shift the entire microbiome within a day. Now, that doesn't mean that we'll get rid of inflammation in a day, etc. But the effect is rather dramatic when we eat food. But as I had also mentioned, it not only shifts the bacteria from one type to another, from either pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory and many other, but it also affects the epithelial cells, the lining in our GI tract. We have this 9-micron thick mucus layer, and it's very, very, very thin, but it plays a remarkable impact in our health and well-being. And the foods we eat actually have a significant impact on that. So things that are high in sugar, that are in a lot of highly processed foods, affect the thickness of that layer. And then also food has a dramatic impact on the immune system itself. We know that there are foods that are anti-inflammatory and that there are foods that are pro-inflammatory. So food has this remarkable impact on our overall well-being, whether we actually are completely aware of it at the time that we're eating or not. And that's why eating healthy is an important for people who have IBD and for everybody. And I actually have a question for Chef Ryan.
Hello.
Chef, how are you going to be getting that food to us? Because I right now I'm a little bit hungry, and I'm just I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to eat that. So
maybe we can talk. We'll do an in-person sometime or something.
I think I would love that.
I'll travel with you guys. So yeah, now I've added that white wine that's kind of cooked down. You can see there's almost no liquid in the pan now. So that garlic is kind of soaked up that liquid. The capers, these onions are nice and translucent. So what we're going to do now is add our Dijon and some of this coconut cream, and that's going to hydrate this and kind of build our sauce. I've also taken out my squash because, again, our ovens are different. This has been in about 15-20 minutes, and it's delicious. So again, if you're cooking at home, check your squash. Mine is done, so yours might be done too. So here's my cream and some Dijon. And we're on low heat now because we don't want to overcook anything. We just want to warm that through, give that a couple minutes. And once that's cooked through, we'll do a little taste. And should be good to plate up. So I think we sent some other recipes also. I'm not demoing everything tonight, but I also have some asparagus wrapped in prosciutto that we did. And then a grain-free nut butter brownie that actually came out very well too. So I'm going to be having that for dessert. Sorry, you at home and Doc, you can't have it, but it is very tasty. So anyone cooking at home or that has the recipes that's maybe not cooking tonight, I recommend trying them. They've been really good.
Looks so good, Ryan. Hey, Kim, what are some signs that a family might need some more support from a dietitian? When should they seek out an appointment with a dietitian?
Anytime. No, one of the beautiful things at Seattle Children's working there was that every family met with a dietitian at the time of diagnosis. And I know that that's not possible for every family. Not every family or kid is close to kind of an academic center. So in that case, anytime your interested in learning more about how can we use nutrition as to help my kid or myself or my family. And that can be if you have just more detailed questions in general, if your kid is struggling to grow, or if they have any nutrient deficiencies that have been identified. If you're like, well, we haven't checked for any, that could be a time to see an IBD dietitian. Slowed growth, weight loss, and then, of course, any interest in kind of those other approaches as far as a defined nutrition therapy, the Mediterranean diet. There are just so many instances where I would encourage a family to seek, even if it's a one-off visit with a dietitian. The dietitian, IBD dietitian, can really help clarify some of the noise that is all over the internet that's comes from well-intending family and friends. And there's a great list of IBD dietitians on the GI Nutrition Foundation website.
That's awesome. Not to date myself, but when I was first diagnosed, there was no talk of food, there was no talk of nutrition, which to me is crazy, just knowing that the connection from guts to our GI and everything, mind, body included, how it affects everything. So it's one reason that I was really focused on kind of learning my own body and ways to make myself feel good, because back in my day, we weren't ever kind of referred to a dietitian or someone to talk about food or healthy eating. So I'm super excited that it is talked about more and encouraged, and I'm excited to be a part of it now. So I'm finishing up my sauce. You can see it's nice and thick. I added some butter. I'm going to taste it. I'm going to add any aromatics that I need. There's some lemon juice if possible. Let's see.
What aromatics would you add to this, Chef Ryan?
I have some chive blossoms that I got from the market, and then I'm going to finish with some fresh chopped parsley. The capers add a lot of saltiness and brininess. Acid, I'm going to finish the sauce with. It's great to really just bring out those flavors. So like finishing salt, Malden salt, acid, you see a lot of, it's probably one of the main components. Salt and acid, a really big flavor that pack a lot of flavor. So you see those in a lot of cooking. All right, so this is about done. One little taste. It's nice. The acid kind of makes everything pop. We'll take our parsley. We'll do a little rough chop on some of this. I wouldn't add a lot of fresh garnishes or herbs. If you're cooking something long, it's just going to kind of cook all of that flavor out. So things like, if you're using dried garlic powder or some other things, those are great to cook with from the get-go. But really, if you're using fresh herbs, it's really nice as a garnish because it brings out all those fresh flavors and adds a little color, some brightness. So yeah, here's my parsley. My chicken is coming out. It's been out kind of resting here. My sauce is finished. Everyone's hungry at home waiting. So we'll plate it up. So this would go great over some pasta. We're literally going to serve it just as the chicken itself. You can serve it whole. You know what? I might, just because I want it to make it look a little better, I might slice it a little. So let's see. Here. Oh, yeah.
While you're chopping the chicken, we've got a question. Are there certain herbs that are more easily digested?
Kim or John, that might be a better question for you guys. I can digest most of them pretty well. Again, the garlics and things like that, the onion tend to be a little more problematic for some people, but again, it's different for everybody.
And I do think it also depends on how it's prepared. And as Chef Ryan mentioned, the longer something gets cooked, the more broken down it is. And sometimes that's easier to tolerate than if it's fresh. So I think each of us are individuals, and as you can, tolerate alliums, awesome. But also the preparation matters when we're dealing with herbs or all foods.
And I find too that, the amount that we use of them generally is well tolerated by most. It's kind of when you get to the spices that can be a little problematic, really the capsaicin, spicy foods, they're not leading to inflammation, but they can elicit symptoms because spicy foods can cause the GI tract to be, react. So in that case, I do say be careful with spicy food and kind of assess your tolerance, not out of a fear-based approach, but more just start small and work your way up. And I would say the same for herbs. If you're a little nervous about them, start smaller, blend them, chop them more finely, and then you can expand. Some people too react, one-offs like to cilantro, and it doesn't agree with their stomach as much. And that seems to be not necessarily related to their IBD, but maybe more of their tolerance to the herb itself.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great and really important point, is that there can be a difference between tolerance and inflammation. And so if you eat something and you get a symptom, that doesn't necessarily mean that the inflammation is getting worse. It may just be a question of, is your body able to tolerate it? They're both important components. The other aspect is, just because you don't get a symptom doesn't mean that that food, especially highly processed foods, etc., aren't causing issue. And that's where really it's so important to have follow-up evaluations over time, just to make sure that whether you're on medication therapy, dietary therapy, both, that you are doing well, and that you're not only physically feeling well, but the inflammation itself is under control.
Sounds great. That looks so good.
Yeah,
We'd like
it's
for
good.
Yes.
I'm eating it here.
So good.
So I kind of plated it up. I put the squash on here. But yeah, that is a simple dish to make. I hope it wasn't too complicated. Again, I want this to feel approachable for you all. If you have questions, of course, you can reach out to us. But food and cooking is such a big part of my life. It's something I share with loved ones, and especially if you're, at home, or you're a parent, or you're a child with IBD, knowing how tough those tough times and hard times can be, having something to do in the kitchen and sharing that with a loved one, or cooking with family or friends, not only is great for your own mental health, but then also you're empowering others and yourself to make meals that were going to make you feel better. So naturally, it just puts you in a good mood, and you can share that experience and share that skill in the future.
Sounds great, Ryan. We'd love to get a photo with everyone with their prepared dish, and then I have a wrap up that we'd love to do. So if anyone wants to turn on their video for a quick picture, that would be awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Before we wrap up tonight, I'd love to ask each of our presenters to share one key takeaway they hope families leave with us tonight. Kim, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'd say my key takeaway is to keep nutrition simple. In a world where it's so complicated, it's easier said than done. But nourishing foods, just like this meal that Chef Ryan made, keeping it simple and spending time in the kitchen together.
I would echo that. I would also say that Food is so important for our overall well-being, whether you have IBD or not, and that it's an absolutely fun and joyous thing and something that we can all do together. So eat well.
Yeah, I would piggyback on both of those being great tips. I think one thing that on the chef side I can recommend is not to be intimidated by recipes, not to be too confined by recipes. Again, we cooked through a recipe tonight, but one thing as a chef, you're always using your own palate, your own ideas. So if there's something that you like in a recipe, use it. If there's something that you don't like or something that your body can't handle, there's a lot of modifications, and kind of use that as a guide, just like a doctor or a dietitian would use some guidelines and tips, but you know yourself better than anyone else. And if there's things that you can or can't tolerate in a recipe, try something different. Try a modification that you like. Try a different herb that you like. If it needs more salt, if it needs something to taste, trust your intuition and just have fun.
Thank you all so much for all your thoughtful insights. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. We truly appreciate you taking the time to be here. We know firsthand how overwhelming and navigating IBD can feel as a parent or a caregiver or even a patient. We hope tonight helped make nutrition feel more approachable, practical, and empowering. A heartfelt thank you to Dr. Suskind, Kim Brawley, and Chef Ryan for sharing your time, expertise, and experience with us. We're incredibly grateful for your partnership and everything you shared with us tonight. As a reminder, what we shared today is meant to support and inspire you, but every individual is unique. We encourage you to continue working closely with your medical team to determine what works best for your unique situation. Thanks again for being a part of tonight. We're so glad you joined us and hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.